It was a long and adventurous journey with Dr. Trinico. I hope to do justice to the man whom we honor today. As you will note, the things that we will discuss here will time and again present themselves to you as you go through your daily grind of professional concerns in your clinics and hospital. The talk will unearth the often disregarded groundswell of our code of ethics and professional conduct that naturally springs forth from a consensus of what and how we choose to define ourselves in the conduct of our profession as ophthalmologists. Hence, I have entitled my talk, Core Values, Professionalism, and Ethics Revisited. This is because I know that deep inside you, you have all of this. But sometimes we have to revisit our thoughts in that. In the discourse of the above topic, I shall basically discuss the reasons why these subjects are important in the practice of medicine and how these three terms are related. This is actually the outline of my talk, something that most of the time I remind my own staff at the beginning of the year, since we have new residents and perhaps new visiting consultants at the start of each academic year. It is just as well that we are kept on the same page on ethics and professionalism. Why talk about it? Sometime in 2008, during the incumbency of Dr. Crisostomo as president of the Philippine College of Surgeons, that at the same time I was the PO president, we had the same observation that there are various incidents in medical practice that tend to cast doubt on our integrity and ability to act in a truly professional manner. I was of the belief that we have not been remiss in our duties in imparting the science of ophthalmology to our trainees and graduates through the years, as we have given them various forums of academic and surgical skills transfer. But I think, as educators, we have miserably failed to adequately provide role models in the art and practice of our discipline, its behavioral attributes. As a matter of fact, sometimes I feel that we have taught residents too much skills and knowledge that can be subject for abuse in their clinical practice later on. In the same year, the region in charge of the Committee on Surgical Training alerted the surgical community on the need to reformat and realign our values and priorities, not only as a survival instinct, but as an evolutionary refinement. He further stated that, and I quote, "Any misdemeanor of one member is not only reflective of that person's deficiency, but of the whole organization he belongs to." Dr. Simbulan reiterated what we in the academy had long believed, that, and I quote, "While we have our own characteristics, one must observe a standard set of behavior towards ourselves, our patients, our colleagues, and our community." He further hints that there are rules of engagement that should be operational to make sure that the standard set of behavior as codified is respected and followed by the members of the organization. Again, in 2009, the then new regent of the Committee on Surgical Training reiterated that as early as 2005 during the Philippine Medical Summit, one of the identified problems in the medical profession was the deteriorating public perception of it. He further lamented the fact that medical curriculum gives premium to grades and competencies rather than values. His observation clearly echoes what I call the triumph of science of medicine versus the art of medicine. Among physicians, this can be likened to giving premium to monetary and fame rewards of the profession rather than the ethical and compassionate care for the patient. He concludes by saying that there is therefore the palpable need to reclaim the lost awe and respect for physicians as professionals. As such, by the end of 2009, the PCS embarked on the development and implementation of the core curriculum on professionalism to mark the long journey of enhancing the behavioral competencies of surgeons. This was presented in their 2009 annual meeting, to which the PO was invited for adoption by our Philippine Board of Ophthalmology Training Program. Indeed, after my convincing the PBO as a trustee, situational ethics and professionalism are now included as part of the core competencies that are being measured in the certifying board exam. This core curriculum on professionalism was therefore born out of the 2005 Philippine Medical Summit Declaration, which states, and I quote, "We agree to advocate the reformation of the curriculum in our medical schools that shall emphasize values, ethics, uphold nationalism, and focus service to others." Notice that values and ethics are contextualized in other-centeredness. I believe that ethics can never prosper towards self-centeredness. Now let's dissect the anatomy of the word core values. Core value is that part of something that is central to its existence or character. It is the central and most important, or the essence of something. It brings out the isness of something. I like to elaborate on this some more by giving you an analogy to the Japanese penchant for bringing out the isness to the Japanese food. Dr. Kikwane Ikeda, while dining on boiled bean curd he called dashi, which is the broth or the soup stock, made from kombu, which is a large brown seaweed, characterized another basic taste altogether different from sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. He began researching on the composition of kombu dashi, the seaweed broth, and ultimately discovered glutamic acid as what gave kombu, the seaweed, the distinctive flavor he had been searching for. He named the taste umami and proceeded to invent a method for producing a seasoning in glutamate as the key component. It thus came that he named it dashi. The broth became the basic element that flavors Japanese cuisine. It enhances and balances the overall taste of dishes, ensuring the pleasant taste of the variety of recipes. We all look for an authentic Japanese restaurant. We want to say if it is really authentic. The Japanese have the penchant of trying to bring out the isness in everything that they find in nature. I find this analogy very apt. The analogy demonstrates the definition of coreness, the isness of a person. Our own dashi, our own growth, which is our soul, that defines our flavor and makes us distinct in the animal kingdom as human beings. What is values, on the other hand? Values is one's judgment on what is most important in life. It underlies a person's principles or standards of behavior. So core values is something that defines you, something that which you consider the most important in life eventually becomes who you are. And while we have an entire universe of values to choose from, others who seek to glorify power, fame, fortune, we choose those that will underlie our work, how we interact with each other, and that which integrates our full vision. Core values, therefore, if we belong to an organization, are those which form the foundation on which we perform work and conduct ourselves. As an example, I have taken from some core values declarations from non-medical entities for you to appreciate. You will notice that these are the essence or the soul, the isness, their own kombudashi that gives their distinct umami or taste of how these companies choose to define themselves, that will underlie their mission vision statements and eventually their core code of ethics and behavior. As such, they become the groundswell of how they will choose to conduct each and every of their action. I got this physician's pledge from the Singapore Medical Society that is being recited in the induction ceremonies of doctors, that basically summarizes the values that they deem or judge are the most important in the medical profession. It gives them a hint on the principles or standards of behavior that they choose for themselves. So you would see that they value service to humanity, conscience and dignity, respect for secrets confided to them, the honor of the noble traditions of medical profession, and so on and so forth. So it distills for them, those taking the induction ceremonies, to find out and refine themselves in this particular pledge. And what are some of the characteristics of core values? Amidst a changing world, core values should remain primarily fixed and constant most of the time. Core values form part of the basic elements of how we do go about our work. and they are the guiding principles on how we choose or what should be using every day as an organization in everything that we do. So it defines who we are. Now, these are some of the things that what core values are and what they are not. They govern personal relationships, they clarify who we are, explain why we do business the way we do, and inform us on how to reward based on meritocracy. It underpins the whole organization. Core values are not business strategies or cultural norms. They are not altered in response to market administration changes, and they are not used individually. As an organization, you must surrender your own individual core values to that which you believe in as you join one. Now let's try to understand how professionalism is defined. Professionalism is defined as a demonstration of competent application of a body of knowledge by a practitioner possessing the virtues, attitudes, and skills befitting the profession. So here again, you see the dichotomy between the arts and the science of medicine. The science of medicine here is your demonstration of a specific body of knowledge, but it doesn't stop there. It must be by a practitioner possessing the right virtues and attitudes and skills befitting a profession. Therefore, a professional is a person of honesty, reliability, and integrity. It is actually an expertise, a calling. And in our medical profession, we always say, someone has once said that the calling of the medical profession is to cure sometimes that which science allows you, to heal often, but if you are found with nothing to do, the medical profession should always comfort. And an ethical person, on the other hand, is a person who performs tasks according to the norms set by society. And we will deal with that later on. Having said this, the PAO sometime in 2010 had a challenge. We tried reviewing why we are this way at that particular time. The challenge we posed ourselves is, what are the most desirable professional behaviors expected of ophthalmologists? Well, these are the behavioral attitudes and skills that I was referring to. This is now referring to the art, the behavioral attitudes, the virtues, the skills, and the abilities that is not exactly the same as the knowledge that we impart. Particular workshop, they identified 7 particular traits that you find in your code of professional conduct as you swear in as member of the academy. It says basically that as a professional, we declare that we want somebody who is competent, that is knowledge. We want somebody that is honest, who is a patient advocate, compassionate and socially responsible, courteous and respectful, has integrity and ethical. From this, you can glean that the PAO had enumerated 7 most desirable professional behavior of an eye physician that had been codified in our professional code. From this list, you could easily identify the desire for competence representing the science of medicine, while the rest of the attributes are clearly defining the art of medicine. You can therefore see that to be a professional, one must be able to have competence and knowledge and the ability to display them with enough virtues and skills in a manner befitting the profession. Therefore, the marching order of the then PO president, I don't know if he's here, Dr. Bentley Bunchong at the time, was for us to identify the core values that represent the organization that would be consistent with our code of ethics and professional conduct. The Ethics and Practice Management Committee lost no time in distilling for the Academy what these values are. You see, in the Academy, before we had core values, we started with a code of ethics, eventually with a code of professional conduct, and we realized that we missed out on the core values. So that was the first marching order of the president then. You will see that these were the core values identified. We wanted excellence, and we have enshrined this in our own eye center that I've adopted. We strive to continually learn and improve so that we may achieve the highest ideals of patient care. We wanted integrity. We deal honestly and fairly with the public and with one another. We adhere to the truth at all times. And that was what I admonished Leroy when he mentioned that in his introduction. We want respect. While we embrace each other's differences, we value healthy interaction so that we may enrich the well-being of everyone. We wanted professionalism and ethical conduct by saying that we uphold and subscribe to the essential tenets of these relevant codes on these subjects. And last, we want compassionate service. We provide caring service for all sectors of society, including the marginalized and vulnerable groups. This is why, in the foreword of our professional code, we declare to maintain the highest standards of care in our profession befitting our title as ophthalmologists. You have that before you sign the code.
Dragon Ball
In the postscript, we profess to abide by our code of professional conduct before God in the presence of our colleagues and as a covenant to ourselves. So one just simply has to revisit what you've signed in trying to determine how your practice is going. Let's now try to define ethics. Ethics is therefore, as defined, is a social concept of good behavior. It is a collective concept that evolves gradually over time as a result of interaction between individuals living together. So it was as if the Academy consulted a lot of people, how do we want to define ourselves so that we can codify it? Through time, based on common interest, an approved trend is established, and this was very much highlighted by Dr. Ang Leng from the Singapore Medical Association. He was very emphatic on this. It is difficult to identify its origins, nor can one easily credit a particular person or group with being the originator of this ethical concept. But it could be traced back during the time of Hippocrates, who lived in the 377 BC, a Greek physician traditionally regarded as the father of medicine, with his name associated with the Hippocratic Oath that states the obligation and the proper conduct of a physician beginning in the 18th century. In scanning the oath content brings us to the recognition that medicine is again both a science and an art. So even during Hippocrates' time, he recognized that medicine is two-pronged. There is the science of it and there's the art of it. And that the behavioral attitudes of warmth, sympathy, and understanding, which is the art, may sometimes outweigh the science, because science does not provide the answer all of the time. Recall that it is said that a physician's calling be respected while he lives and remembered with affection if he violates not his oath. So even during those times, these were very real situations. Ethics, therefore, is a systematic study of what is right and good with respect to conduct and character. It answers basically two questions. What should we do? The appropriateness of our decision. And should we do it? We want to justify. In my address to the graduates of the UP-PGH batch 2011, I told them that in the process of their training and education, they realized that no matter how they looked at things, there can be only one truth in every situation. Something happened or didn't, with no ifs and buts. Additionally, one realized that there is a fine line that separates white from black, right from wrong, and the good from the bad, no matter how we try to argue otherwise. One realized that the less gray zones we allow in our convictions, the better we felt. We began to see that compromises occasioned trouble for us when we did not confront truth as we have innocently found it or stumbled upon it in its most unadulterated form through our occasional surrender to a system that not only tolerates but glorifies accommodation, patronage, acquiescence. Note that acquiescence means accepting something reluctantly but without protest. Those are compromises. Something feels violated in us when we were asked to accept half-truths, as Diboy has said, because deep inside we know that half-truths are still lies in disguise. At this point, I always tell my residents three things that, I don't know if you know Monsignor Soc Villegas before he became Archbishop. He was the priest who anointed my brother before his death. And he told me, in truth, Ray, it's a very simple test deciding what is right and good. And he tells me, if the Rotary has the 4-way test, I give the 3-way test. And he tells me basically three basic questions. And if your answer to these questions are in the affirmative, quit doing it because chances are it is wrong. What is the first question he posed to me? Are you going to do something simply because no one is looking? The second question he asked me is, are you going to do something because you're just going to do it once in a while? And the third that is most confusing is, are you going to do something because everybody does it anyway? Ever since the time, and that was in 1993, he told me about this, I have begun to apply it in every decision making that I do. And if my answers to those questions are all yes, I better rethink my options in certain situations. So, ethics, therefore, is a behavior that is called from the early family school life experiences. Such attitudes or lack of it rubs on a person as he grows. It submits to the concept of free will and personal choice. It is more akin to conscience than law. And however, sometimes it is very difficult to judge a person's true intent or his veiled intent with something. So, what makes ethics difficult to enforce? Even if you theoretically are in agreement with everything that I've said, because ethics is seldom enforceable with threat of punishment. Apart from moral sanctions and personal disapproval, there is little to ensure that the collective concept that we have agreed upon ourselves will be obeyed. Conformity is achieved only through the force of group, opinion, or pressure. In ethics, there is no compelling force other than popular opinion unless codified in the set rules adhered to by members of society. I would like to add that maybe the only compelling force for you to follow ethics is your conscience. That's very difficult to see how much formed conscience each person has. Unlike laws, the laws need powers of enforcement to make them work, and therefore there are various penalties with graduated severity depending on the magnitude. What about what is ethical and legal? Ethical penalties are limited only to warning, censure, and suspension, expulsion from membership with the curtailment of rights and privileges. And this the Academy has done through the recommendation of the Ethics Committee. It has censured members, it has suspended members in good standing, it has actually terminated members in good standing, and reported the unethical transgressions to other agencies that the Academy may feel affected by the decision. In anything that's legal in criminal law, it embodies punishment ranging from all of the above: corrective confinement, imprisonment, fines, and even to capital punishment. There are no legal standing in most cases in ethics, other than the disapproval of colleagues, resulting in exclusion from group activities and deregistration. And that is why Rule 11 and the procedure and disposition of complaints of our revised rules and regulation, it specifically stated that, and I quote, "The rules of procedure and evidence prevailing in courts of law and equity shall not be controlling and binding in ethics committee proceedings, and the PAO shall use every and all reasonable means only to ascertain facts in each case speedily and objectively, without regard to the technicalities of law or procedure, all in the interest of due process." What drives ethics, therefore? As I said, the only thing, positive factor that drives this is the exercise of human conscience. What is conscience? It is the regulation of a desire even before an act is committed, because you want to see the consequences of your acts. So you regulate your desire. It's temperance. It's a self-imposed censorship applied at the time, at the conception of an idea. Recall the three-way test question of Monsignor Soc Villegas, and this will help you very much in your examination of your conscience. It deals with the orientation of going out of oneself for others' interests. This is being man for others. I'd like to expound on this some more by referring to a article of James Tennyson, who is the author of a very successful parenting guide. At one point, he referred to Mencius, a disciple of Confucius, as having once said, and I quote, that a great person never loses the heart of a child. This is affirmed even in biblical question when Christ was asked, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus answered, I tell you, unless you become like the least of these little children, then you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. By the leastness of the children was meant the social nobodies that children quite naturally are. But without contradicting this premise, James Stenson further adds that, and it's very important, it is important to note, however, that a good teacher, like an educator, must be able to move a child's heart from self to others. He further states that our children will not necessarily grow up when they can take care of themselves. Rather, they are grown up when they can take care of others and really want to. As I said, this is in the same persuasion as the famous Ignatian spirituality of being men for others. Again, in terms of a doctor and a patient, so whose interest is at center stage when we deal with the patient? It is the other and not the self, so it must be the patient. I'm glad that Dr. Prashant is here because I'll be quoting a lot from his great mind, Mahatma Gandhi. He said that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. It can never thrive on self-centeredness. And if you believe this, if you believe in this and not live it, he says, then you are dishonest. I think this brings to fore the importance of what we are saying up to this. So medicine as an ethical practice, it's the patient's interest as a primary concern, the other-centeredness. And as I say, every encounter between a physician is bound by ethics and could be an ethical dilemma, primarily because of the asymmetry of knowledge between the doctor and the patient. You know so much. You've been entrusted with the wisdom and intelligence and knowledge that the patient doesn't know anything about. The patient comes to you with a problem, and it is now you judging on what to recommend the patient. So that becomes an ethical dilemma. Therefore, something must guide physicians to resolve dilemma. I'd like to add at this point how knowledge can sometimes be so corruptive. It is often regarded that knowledge, meaning the knowledge we impart to our residents, empowers, and that is very true. It is, however, well accepted that power can rule, can disrupt and destroy. We fear knowledge when we see it as a source of power which can potentially damage, if not exercised under rigid self-discipline. In this sense, knowledge, being power, has the potential of being a great social risk. Hence, a doctor's use or misuse of his skills and knowledge either saves lives or causes. What is a code of ethics, therefore? It is basically just a general statement of principles of duty to which the members of a profession commit ourselves that gives us our moral character. It tells physicians what they should do and what they should be. A physician therefore relies on a code of ethics to prevent succumbing to their own weakness and degeneration. On the other hand, society depends on doctors' code in order to prevent deviant professionals from becoming a threat. A medical professional without a code of ethics could mean that society could lose its ability to discriminate against doctors with less scruples from those conscientious ones. Furthermore, from the community's viewpoint, an ethical code would not be acceptable if it could not ensure that specialized knowledge was being used for the benefit of the patient and society. Even the three Western schools of ethics in Western philosophy are in agreement on the importance of being other-centered. Aristotle holds that virtues of justice, charity, and generosity are dispositions to act in ways that benefit both the person possessing them and the society that he belongs to. Kant additionally says, he makes the concept of duty central to morality. Humans are bound from the knowledge of their duty as rational beings to respect all other rational beings. This is the categorical imperative. That means that it is an unconditional moral obligation that is binding in all circumstances and is not dependent on a person's inclination or purpose. So as rational beings, we are supposed to respect other rational beings. Furthermore, utilitarianism asserts that the guiding principle of conduct should be the greatest happiness and benefit of the greatest number. You would note that with all of these three schools of Western philosophy, there is nothing about us. It's all about others. Therefore, medical ethics is just the application of ethical rules and principles to the practice of medicine. It's a system of moral principles that apply values and judgment to the practice of medicine. Ethical tensions do not arise when the right thing to do is obvious, as occurs when a positive and a negative are apparent and are pitted against each other. Rather, dilemmas emerge when two apparently good things are in conflict. For example, a patient who refuses medically indicated treatment versus the doctor's duty to do good. So you can see here the biomedical ethical foundations of autonomy and beneficence are in conflict. Or let's say a parent asking a doctor about his son's sexual activity or drug abuse history. Again, the biomedical ethical foundations of confidentiality and the beneficence that the doctor should be doing are in conflict. And these are difficult situations to be in. So how do we resolve it in the academy? Well, we gather all the facts relevant to the case. When there is a complaint, we identify the values that are in conflict, we propose solutions to resolve the conflict, and choose the better solutions. Remember the questions, it answers what should we do, and should we do it? It answers because you have to choose the solutions that are most appropriate, justify it, and then respond to possible criticism. I like quoting this prayer of physicians that was conceptualized by Sir Robert Hutchinson that very well embodies the very heart of ethics in clearly seeing patients as the significant others to whom we should connect by building bridges of trust in our chosen profession. He actually asked the Lord to deliver physicians from the inability to get well alone, from too much zeal for the new and contempt for the old, for putting science before art, cleverness before wisdom, from treating patients as cases, and for putting money before service, and from making the cure of the disease more grievous than the endurance of the same. Well, in our modern day world, I added this, especially in the context of the changing landscape of practice of our profession. The following additional supplications in dealing with patients are quite apt. And we ask the Lord to deliver us from the insatiable desire to chase patients from the far corners of the world instead of allowing them to find their doctors of choice. From the inordinate and irrational utilization of limited resources to further one's material interests. I'm talking about the health insurance funds that are being siphoned off because of the doctor's materials interest. From the deceitful practice of professional misrepresentation and intellectual dishonesty, and from the most especially, from the malignant narcissism of always projecting ourselves to be better than our colleagues, we pray that we be delivered from all these maladies. Mahatma Gandhi again could not have said it more eloquently when he said that our beliefs become the seeds of our thought, that we verbalize into words, that in turn we put into actions, and actions done repeatedly occasion our habits, and that our habits engender the values that we cherish, and our most cherished values predicate our destiny. He likewise reminds us that happiness is ours when what we think, what we say, and what we do are in harmony. To believe, recall that he said, to believe in something, if you believe this and do not practice it, you are dishonest to yourself. Quite succinctly, he was able to masterfully elucidate on what could be some of the greatest transgression in ethics that we occasionally find ourselves in. Wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, science without humanity, knowledge without character, politics without principle, commerce without morality, and worship without sacrifice. Inspired by the teachings of Hippocrates and Gandhi, and because of the many complaints received by the ethics community on various possible transgressions of the different provisions of the code, patients against practitioners, colleagues against colleagues, patients against institution, In the last 5 years, the Ethics Committee reviewed the implementing rules and regulations of the Code and gave its recommendations on how to make the IRG more relevant and responsive to the changing needs of the time. The committee chair lost no time in convening the committee and ban as early as January 2012 with the help of a legal counsel and the PMA Commission on Ethics. It submitted its final draft. I hope I have done justice to the memory of a great mentor, a colleague, a father, and a friend to me, whom we honor with this memorial lecture. Thank you very much for your patience and attention.